Greetings, everyone. I hope you are fine. I hope you are doing well. And I would like to appreciate you for taking this moment, this time to watch this video. I have a very interesting video for you. And what makes this video to be interesting is especially if you want to know why democracy is a scam. So this video is all about that. With quality, it might not be that clear, but when it comes to audio, I believe that it's 100% clear because the most important thing is the message. This video is very interesting.
They have come to Southern Africa to teach us democracy. A country that was opposed to our liberation, a country that supported colonial regimes, the apartheid regime in South Africa, the white racist minority regime in Zimbabwe, now Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe.
The most important thing here is that you cannot expect those who oppressed you in the past to teach you about democracy. In other words, you cannot expect a witch, someone who doesn't care about people, someone who oppresses people, someone who doesn't care at all about people to teach you about love, like loving your neighbor as yourself, and etc. and etc. The most important thing is that if you don't know how to survive or how to live, it is very important for you to focus on the principles of life, especially when it comes to Africa. When it comes to Africa, there's no way you can rely upon these countries such as United States of America, Britain, and many others, because this democratic system is a scam. In other words, in most cases, you cannot be pro-African culture. You cannot adhere to African culture and still love democracy. It's highly impossible because in most cases, they do clash, especially when you talk about American democracy or Western democracy in general. In other words, it clashes with African culture when it comes to behavior or attitude, when it comes to many other things. And when it comes to history again, these people oppressed Africans. When we talk about America right now, because it's like America right now is the world teacher of democracy, but they have a history. They have a history of enslaving Africans or black people in America. And you can tell that they're not even sorry about that. It's just that they had to change a strategy so that the whole world can see them as the angels. But when you look into their strategies, their principles of life, their values and all those things, they don't like correlate very well with African culture. In other words, there's a clash. So that is why even when it comes to politics, even when it comes to business, even when it comes to many things, we should stay far from these countries. I know there are many people who love these countries and they love the leaders of these countries. But here's the thing: if you are an African, especially living in Africa, you've got nothing to do with these people, because what they bring to Africa is what they don't do in their own countries. They just want to confuse you. So that is why we cannot allow them to teach us anything about democracy, anything about freedom, because right now, as we speak, Africa is still oppressed to the core. Right now, they want to put themselves in Burkina Faso. They want to find themselves in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. They don't like that. Why? It's because these people are against freedom, but at the same time, they call themselves the teachers of democracy.
The Portuguese colonial governments in Mozambique, in Angola, in Guinea-Bissau, and Cape Verde, today is coming to Africa to teach us about democracy. A country that has toppled so many governments in Africa, that has led so many coups in Africa, and other parts of the world. A country that has killed so many of our leaders in Africa and other parts of the world. The killers of Patrice Lumumba, those who toppled Kwame Nkrumah, those who killed Nasser, those who killed Muammar Gaddafi, today are coming to teach us about democracy.
Yes, indeed. We cannot listen to these people. Why? Because Africa is where it is right now because of these people. And they behave like they don't want any country in Africa to be led by military because it's not a good thing. But these people are good when it comes to overthrowing governments here in Africa so that they can put people who will align with their agenda. This is what they want. So when you see all these puppets who are speaking or who are preaching democracy here in Africa, in most cases, they work for America. They work for Western countries. But here is the thing. We cannot continue being slaves to these countries. Yes, they've programmed our minds because they've told us that they are superior. They've told us that they are on top of the world. And now, because of this inferiority that is within us, within our souls, within our minds, that is why we continue running back to them. Even if they show us their true colors, we still continue running back to them because we think that without these people, we cannot do anything. So these people have destroyed our leaders who would have played a major role when it comes to the development of Africa. In other words, these guys became the enemies of our freedom. And what they did is to talk bad about these leaders, such as Gaddafi, Patrice Lumumba, and many others. Because they own media, it's easy for them to confuse us, to manipulate our minds, and to make us to follow their agenda. That is why right now we have many Africans who are like, Ibrahim Traore is not a good leader because he's a military leader. There are many people right now, others are even using scriptures. In other words, they've gone to an extent of using even the scriptures to prove that Ibrahim Traore, by uniting Africa, he's not a good person. In other words, he's following the agenda of other countries or the agenda of the devil, something like that. Why? It's because mainstream media and Western countries, they have to try by all means to come up with strategies to make us to hate Ibrahim Traore, as they did with these other leaders such as Robert Mugabe, Gaddafi, and many others. I'm not saying these leaders were perfect, but here is the thing. You can tell if someone has a vision or a goal of developing your country or of developing Africa.
A country that has been built on brutal force, on enslavement of other human beings, on the humiliation of Africans, the exploitation of Africans, the plunder of Africa, today is coming to teach us about democracy. That's the arrogance, the imperialist arrogance, the racist arrogance that we are subjected to.
The most problematic thing is that we have many leaders from Africa who bow down to these countries. And just because these people are leaders and we love them. We love these leaders. In other words, we end up following them to each and every direction they take because we trust them, because we love them. When in reality, these people are misleading us. So you cannot say you want freedom, but you want people who oppressed you for over 400 years to come and teach you about democracy, how to behave, how to talk, how to communicate with people. The very same people who don't know how to treat people, who don't have a history of treating people with good dignity, and you expect them to lead you. You expect them to teach you about human rights. You expect them to teach you about good values and principles. Come on. According to my perspective, I think we need to go back to our drawing board so that we can evaluate these systems, such as democratic systems and many other systems that come from these countries, because their intention is to steal, kill, and destroy.